So you've bought your Skaven paint set and you're ready to venture into the worlds of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. In this step-by-step guide, I'll show you how to use the contents of your box set to quickly and easily paint your miniatures. Before you know it, you'll be needing some reinforcements. Painting Warhammer is fun and rewarding, and I'm here to walk you through each stage of the process. So let's get started. Before we start painting, you'll need to build your Skaven. You'll see on the back of the box there are some instructions on how to build your 5 models. To help you with building, have a look at our Painting Essentials How to Build Your Mini video for some top tips. Once you have those models built, we'll need to gather a few things first before we start painting. To paint miniatures, you'll need a pot of water and some paper towel, and something to use as a palette. The plastic tray in the box is great for this, and a good light source will help you see all those details. If you'd like to know more about setting up a painting area, we've got a handy video packed full of information. The paints used in this guide are the ones found in the set, and they're also listed on screen now. We're using the paints in the set to replicate the images of the miniatures on the box art. It's a good idea to keep your box art to hand when you're painting, as you can refer back to it if you're unsure which paints go in which parts. We'll be painting these Skaven in that classic red colour scheme. However, remember that these are your miniatures. You don't have to stick to the box art colours, so feel free to let your imagination run wild. The first thing we'll be doing is something called an undercoat, and we'll be using our pot of Rakarth Flesh to do this. Don't worry if you haven't heard of undercoating before, I'll take you through it. So what is an undercoat? This is where we apply paint to the whole model, and this acts as the foundation for all our other paints to stick to. There are 2 ways to do this, using a spray can or by painting it from the pot. In this case, we're going to be painting it from the pot using Rakarth Flesh, as it's the main colour of our Clanrats. If you do want to learn more about undercoating with a spray can, we've got a great video all about it called Spray Paint and Undercoating. But back to our pot method. It's normal for the paint to settle and separate in the pot over time, so let's give it a good shake until it's a smooth, even colour. Break the seal and push the lid until it clicks into the tab at the back to help keep the pot open while in use. Wet your starter brush from the set with a little water, wipe any excess away on a paper towel so it's damp but not sodden, and then load the bristles of paint from the reservoir inside the lid. Take care not to get paint all the way up the metal part of the brush, which is called the ferrule, as this can damage the brush as it dries. Just about halfway up the bristles is plenty of paint. You can learn more about this technique in our thinning paint video. Thinning our paint gives us the ability to avoid creating lumps on our model and obscuring the smallest details on our models too. But we do want to be careful that it's not too thin, or the paint will just simply slip off the model. Thinning our paint creates a smoother consistency which can be applied with several thin layers to our miniature. This might seem to take a little longer, but it will give you a much better end result. You'll see that these miniatures are packed full of detail. If we apply one thick coat of paint, we risk clogging up all that awesome detail. We avoid this by applying a couple thin layers instead. This ensures we get to see all the awesome detail underneath with a smooth finish. You can be really messy at this stage. Just make sure to get paint into every little nook and cranny and a flat surface. You'll notice that the first coat might struggle to stick to the plastic. Don't worry, just keep going and cover as much as you can in one coat. You'll need to leave the first coat to dry for around 15 minutes, which gives you plenty of time to start undercoating your other Clanrats. Once it's dry, apply a second coat in the exact same way. You'll find the coverage of the paint will be much better this time round. And when that's dry, apply a third coat. Whilst each coat is drying, you can do the same steps on your other rats too, in a small assembly line of sorts. The end result should look something like this, with the model covered evenly in Rakarth Flesh. Well done, you've just undercoated your first model. Now we can start adding some other colours by base coating. Our next paint we'll be using is Leadbelcher for all our silver areas, such as the sword, armour, chainmail and the metal parts of the shield. Base coating is similar to undercoating, but instead of covering the whole model, we're just focusing on adding paint to certain details, to give them some solid colours on their own. When applying base coats, just thin it down with a little water, just like you did before. It'll probably take 2 coats to achieve complete coverage. We want to try and be as neat as we can here, as this will give us a much better end result, and save us time as we won't have to go back and tidy up. However, if you do get any silver onto the wrong areas, just take your Rakarth Flesh and tidy up by covering over the mistakes with a coat or 2. Don't forget to thin it down with water though. As more layers of paint go onto a model, the more we risk creating lumps and bumps if those are too thick. Thin layers are a super easy way to get that smooth finish we want. You might notice that the water is looking a little shiny, and that's because we just used a metallic paint. After you've finished with the silver, it's a good idea to change your paint water. We don't want any of those metallic flakes getting onto our brush or making our non-metallic paint shiny. With your water now clean, we can move on with our next colour. Next we'll be using Khorne Red to paint the robes. Follow the same methods as you've done with the last paint, trying to be as neat as you can. And if you ever find your brush losing its point, just roll it on the palette to get those bristles behaving again. Remember to wait for the paint to dry before moving on to the next stage. And don't forget that you can be painting your other miniatures while you're waiting for it to dry. Doing this will have them all done before you know it. Now we're going to use Steel Legion Drab to paint the weapon handle and the wooden parts on the shield. As you can see, some of these areas we need to paint are very close to the skin and the silver, so try to be as neat as you can. This is why it's easier to paint the Raid's smaller details after the main colours are down. Plus, if you make any mistakes, a quick coat of Rakarth Flesh or Leadbelcher will easily tidy up any mishaps with the brown, especially around the edges that meet the other colours. Once that's dry, you've actually finished base coating your first miniatures. Well done! If you want to stop here, you absolutely can. They are more than ready to take down the heroes of Sigmar. However, if you'd like to learn how to use other paints included in your set, keep watching. The next thing we're going to do is apply Agrax Earthshade to the miniature. This paint is different to the others because it's a shade paint. Shade paints are very thin and are designed to slightly tint flat surfaces of the miniature while settling into the recesses. You'll notice how this creates depth on the miniature by darkening down those recessed areas. Applying a shade is a really quick and easy way to take your paint job up a notch and to the next level. We won't need to add any water to this paint. Just take it straight from the pot, making sure there isn't too much on your brush. You can find out more information about shade paints in our Painting Essentials playlist. Agrax Earthshade works over so many different base coats, so we can simply apply it over the whole model. When you're doing this, work in small sections, focusing on those details in that area. We want to avoid the paint drying too quickly anywhere, as this could leave tide marks on the flat surfaces and create an inconsistent finish. We can do this by applying just enough that it flows into those recesses, but doesn't slip down the model when it's drying, creating dark patches. You might notice that sometimes it pulls really heavily in some of the recesses. We actually want to avoid this happening, as it isn't quite the finish we're after. If you find this happening, clean off your brush and dry it off, and then place it back into the area and you'll see that it'll soak up all that shade. Wipe this off on a paper towel and continue until you've reduced the pooling. Now it looks much better. Shades will take around 30 minutes to dry. Don't forget that you can work on your other miniatures while you wait. Just take your time and enjoy the process. The final paint we're going to use is Astrogranite, and we'll be applying this to the base. Astrogranite is a type of technical paint. This is a range of paints created for basing and to add all sorts of cool effects to your miniatures. We've got a video all about technical paints if you'd like to see more of them in action. This particular one is designed to be used on bases to create a textured stone effect. Basing a miniature really helps to finish it off and bring the whole thing to life. We tend to do it last to finish off the painting process, but some people prefer to base their miniatures earlier, or even at the start of the process. To apply this, we're going to show you a couple different methods depending on the tools you have available. Technical paints like Astrogranite can be tough to get off brushes, so we don't actually want to use the brush included in the set, as it will likely get ruined in the process. So let's look at some other options. First, we have the Citadel texture tool, which you can buy on the Warhammer website or in one of our Warhammer stores. This is the quickest and easiest way to apply technical paint onto bases, as it's specifically designed for the job. It's a plastic tool with two scoops on it, one large and one small. We use the large end to scoop the paint out of the pot and apply it to the base, and the small end is really helpful when it comes to getting the paint around the model's feet. If you can, try to avoid getting any Astrogranite on the miniature itself or the rim of the base. Just a little around the feet helps to tie the model and the base together really well. If you don't have a texture tool, alternatively you could fashion a tool from the plastic tray or cardboard box the models came in. It'll take a while as it's quite small, but it's a great option if you don't have the texture tool. Technical paint takes about an hour to dry, so leave them to dry in a safe place and they'll be ready in no time at all. Congratulations! Your first Skaven Clanrats are complete and are ready to face the heroes of the Mortal Realms. If you want to learn more and get those next steps in place, we have the Painting Essentials playlist with all our beginner tips and tricks. We also have lots of painting videos on the YouTube channel with various techniques and model guides for you to watch. Or maybe you prefer to talk to a person. We have hundreds of Warhammer stores across the world with our amazing staff ready to help you out. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. Bye bye.